Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode on the TMK Podcast. Today, we have a special episode with Tim. Not Tim from, I guess, now Favorite Alex, but Customer Tim. This is our first episode in a sort of customer series where I am going to start talking to people in the community who I've been sort of corresponding with on various things throughout this process, and who I think bring some really interesting insight into the Kratom world, both in the ways that you found Kratom, that you use Kratom. And Tim, actually, you reached out to me, basically said, I'm really interested in being on this, and sort of here's my background. And I was really intrigued by your background. So thank you for being the first customer on this podcast. And if you could, I'd love to learn a little bit about your background with Seven and just sort of how you came to find TMK and find me.
Yeah, of course. So I have an extensive background of just kind of being in recovery. So throughout my life, I kind of acquired a really bad opiate addiction. And as you may know, opiates can bring you to some really dark places. The fentanyl epidemic has really hit a lot of people, and fentanyl hit me at one point in time. So after recovering from that, I had to go through a MAT program, which was a medicated assistance program, and that ended up putting me on Suboxone. So after all the rehabilitation and everything was said and done, I still feel like I needed to be, on something just to kind of deter me from wanting to go back to the illicit substances that were, going to ruin my life, basically. So the doctor wanted to prescribe me Suboxone, and that was something that I had tried in the past, and I really didn't like it. But at this point in time, I was kind of willing to do anything that I had to try and stay, working in a positive direction for my life. But this last time I got on Suboxone, it started making me really, really sick, to the point where I would have bouts of vomiting for days at a time. And it was almost like uncontrollable vomiting is the best way to describe it. I know it's kind of gross and vulgar, but that really was the worst side effect that I was having from Suboxone. And it didn't matter how much that I took. I was prescribed like an 8 milligram dose, and I would take like quarters, sometimes like 1/6 of a tablet, trying to just wean myself off of it, because I know that it comes with its own set of issues, just taking it. It comes with natural side effects. But one of the side effects that they didn't really mention to me, and that my doctor didn't mention to me when I questioned her about it, was the gastrointestinal issues. So basically, my gastrointestinal issues had gotten so bad while I was taking Suboxone that I wanted to quit it. And quitting Suboxone was harder than quitting heroin and fentanyl, which are both two things that I have sadly gotten into in the past. Yeah. The withdrawals from fentanyl and heroin do not compare to the withdrawals from the pharma-prescribed Suboxone. I was able to wean myself down to probably like 1/8 of a strip at a time, which is a very little dose. But once I got to that 1/8 part, I couldn't really break free from it without bouts of puking and cold sweats and insomnia, just all those negative side effects that you get when you go through withdrawals from that drug. So I felt stuck. I really, really felt stuck in it. And it was really starting to take a toll on my work life. It was making it hard to keep a job. At the time, I did have a job, and I was keeping it. And I was very forward with my employers about my recovery, my path to recovery, and Suboxone being part of it. But when it come time for me to quit the Suboxone, I just really couldn't get past, this certain point without getting really brutally sick. And I kind of felt stuck, in a sense, like, is this what it's going to be like for the rest of my life? I'm going to have to take this. I just didn't see any way out of it. And I was at work one day, and I was explaining my issues to a coworker, and he actually said, have you tried this product? And at the time, he referred me to Opia, which you and I now both know that as far as 7-hydroxymetragenine products, it's not the best. They seem to be highly underdosed from what they're advertising. But all that aside, he asked me if I'd ever tried it, and I said no, I didn't quite understand it. He said that it was Kratom, and I've used Kratom in the past, but I was willing to give it a try so I could see if I could hopefully wean off of the Suboxone and then maybe try this and use this as a path to recovery instead. So when I ended up taking my first dose, I was in really bad withdrawals because everyone says you don't mix Suboxone with other opiate-like substances. At the time, I didn't know that you can actually take 7-hydroxy and Suboxone at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think that it puts you into precipitated withdrawals, but it actually does not. This time I didn't know. So I waited till I was really, really sick and withdrawing, and then took my first dose of 7-hydroxymetragenine. And immediately I felt the relief, that you get when you're an opiate addict and you take that dose of whatever it is you're taking. Immediately I got that relief, and then I got a really nice boost in energy and a little bit of euphoria from it. At the time, it didn't make a whole lot of sense knowing that it was a kratom product because I've tried kratom in the past. But that instance where I tried 7-hydroxymetragenine really opened up, a whole new world for me. If you know anything about the Suboxone maintenance programs, they like to get you on it for a very long, extended period of time. I feel like Big Pharma just wants you as a customer, and they kind of want to keep you there. There's no Suboxone programs.
It's a total racket.
It is. I have a lot to talk about as far as Big Pharma and that being a racket. The slander that they're doing towards 7-OH and all the fear mongering caused by it. I feel like it's our new reefer madness epidemic, basically. 7-OH has replaced reefer in that instance, and now they're doing the fear mongering as they did back when marijuana was an issue.
Totally. I'm curious, where are you sort of at now in your recovery journey, and maybe you're about to go into that?
Yeah, actually. So I've been off of Suboxone and illicit. So I consider kratom to be part of my recovery journey. I've gotten to the point to where I can manage my doses. I know I see a lot of horror stories of people that they start taking a low dose and now they're up to 250 milligrams, multiple times a day. And I think that you probably know that is not the way to do it. With this particular drug, less is more. I find myself hovering around the 20 milligram doses. And then when my tolerance gets up there, sometimes around 40 milligrams, but then I'll do a taper using MIT and kind of reel myself back in.
Mm-hmm.
But my life has become much more manageable than it was when I was using the Suboxone. The Suboxone, besides being sick for literally days at a time, multiple weeks out of the month, just incapacitated, bedridden, projectile vomiting as a side effect from using this drug. Right now, I have no gastrointestinal issues, and my life has just become I've become much more functionable, and I'm able to do more, go out more, spend time with people, and kind of live a normal life and not feel like I'm attached to this substance. Suboxone being the racket that it is, you have to pay. Every appointment that I had was $150, and I'd have to do weekly appointments to get my Suboxone script. And then on top of that, my script was about another $150. So, they would usually, when they trust you, you can do appointments every 2 weeks instead of every week. And then you eventually get to every month. But even then, your prescriptions and your appointments really, really add up. The thing that's been most life-changing for me is the affordability that 7-OH provides.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that the vendors like you provide. I'm not buying them from smoke shops where you're paying, 15 cents a milligram. Getting it from a trusted vendor where you know what you're getting, and you actually know. That paying for something and you're getting exactly what you pay for it's been awesome. I'm grateful for companies and vendors like you guys that actually have lab results that we know are trusted versus going into a smoke shop and buying who knows what and getting, honestly, at times, who knows what. I mean, some of my favorite tabs I've come to find out have MGM-15 in them, which is not something that I particularly want to be doing, during my recovery journey. 7-hydroxymetragenine seems to be enough for me. But yeah, in short, it's really made my life a lot easier. It's a lot more manageable than any other maintenance programs that I've done. Suboxone, honestly, was causing me a lot of health issues, and it made me a mean person. I've had my girlfriend tell me that I was just really short-tempered and kind of just mean when I was on it. And strangely enough, when I take 7-OH, it just makes me want to hold her and just love everyone. You know what I'm saying? It puts me in a strange...
Nice. Yeah. Love that.
It's to explain. I don't know if you felt the same feeling, but when I first started taking it and I would get a really euphoric tab, I would kind of describe the feeling as love. It's hard to put into that feeling into words. I'm not experienced with ecstasy, but I could only imagine that kind of euphoric feeling that you get would be something similar. This is something that we're getting from, it derives from a plant-based, material. So it's something that's naturally found out in the world is just, I'd much rather put something natural into my body than anything that's 100% chemically produced.
Yeah. And I totally hear what you're saying with the euphoria and just sort of those like nice fuzzy feelings. This is not like a very scientific approach to it, but I would imagine that like, having lived so much of your life just in pain and just like your body just not having really any homeostasis, it probably feels really great to finally find a solution where your body actually feels like, this is a way it can function without pain, without issues. And then, I imagine that sort of has some effect just psychologically.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's 100% it, man. It's, so I've heard stories of people that have anxiety sometimes while using this, maybe towards like the withdrawal end of things, but it helps me manage my anxiety and depression, which is also, something that I didn't touch on. Being in recovery and addiction, usually depression comes along with that. A lot of addiction is depression based. But when I'm using 7-hydroxy, I do use it regularly, to be completely forward. I'll use it every day, but there'll be instances where I want to take a break and I'll replace it with MIT. And then from there, you can go to regular kratom leaf, and then after that, you can just quit for a while, which is good for tolerance breaks and things like that. But it seems to have some sort of, I don't know if it's the euphoria or like you said, the homeostasis that I get from it that kind of just brings a bit of peace into my life that I didn't have before or without it.
Yeah, totally. Makes sense. The next thing I sort of wanted to get into, just talking about the different sort of feelings, and I'm really curious for you because you have some, scientific knowledge about how these things are made. I know you're talking to me about like malic acid.
Yeah.
I'd love to know just sort of from your perspective of having a little bit of a science background, like what are your thoughts on our tabs and like what are some ways that you think we could improve our product?
Okay, well, right off the bat, so being a consumer, that I'm also an advocate for 7-OH. So I sometimes do what some would call doomsday prepping. So I've acquired quite a bit of different brands tabs, and yours was actually one of the last brands that I'd ever tried. I don't know if it's because you guys released tabs later than everybody else, or if it was just I hadn't had a chance to really discover you guys. But I think the first time I got to try your guys' tabs was that sample pack that I got from you guys. And immediately when I took the blueberry, I had this, the only way that I could put it into words would be to say that it felt very clean, It's hard to describe it. I guess I'm at a loss for words, but compared to other tabs that I've had, it felt the cleanest. You know what I'm saying? Some tabs kind of make me groggy. I don't know if you've ever experienced that using 7-OH products or just using kratom in general. When I first started using it, like the Opia tabs, I was using those and it made me very groggy and forgettable. Forgettable. It just made me very, very groggy, and it made it easy for me to forget things. So when I tried your guys' tabs immediately, I felt like, wow, this is really, really clean. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because there's other alkaloids that are not in your tablets that are also in other tablets. I think that's why some tablets will have different effects with others, and some will have euphoria and some won't. See, the first batch of watermelons that I got from you guys, I got the painkiller effect that you would get from normal tablets, but it didn't have as much euphoria as what the blueberries had for me. And I started to realize that it didn't matter how many that I took dosage-wise, how many milligrams, because I would take 40 milligrams of blueberry and get this great euphoria, and then I would take 40 milligrams of the watermelon exactly because I didn't want there to be any outside, outliers in this little experiment that I was performing. And I really didn't get the euphoria, it felt like, almost whatsoever, but I did recently purchase another 700 from you guys because this 13 milligram batch, I think it's the second batch that you guys have produced, are absolutely great. So whoever was making it, I don't know what they made a change in, but they hit the nail on the head with that one because the euphoria is back. 7-hydroxy seems to be one of these. I guess we don't quite understand, what alkaloids do what and produce what feelings. But I really wish that maybe instead of banning everything, the government could take a standpoint of research, and really put some money into researching kratom and all the different alkaloids, that come out of it. So we could really make this into a powerful medicine that it honestly probably should be. I don't think anyone opposes having a set standard of rules. I didn't mention during the podcast, but when I started out at my current location, I started out homeless. I moved down to this state, and my boss and I got into it about my pay. And I was not only living with him, but I was renting from him as well. So I had a really rough start. But I was able to recover from my homelessness and go through a program that was able to help me build my life back up and just become a human being again, honestly. But
Wow.
the struggles of life eventually brought me back to using in Florida, and fentanyl is really predominant where I'm at. So sadly, I got hooked back on that again. But in regards to 7-hydroxymetragenine, man, it is I feel like it's a miracle for a lot of people because it scratches that itch that a lot of opiate addicts have. And it really scratches that itch. I couldn't imagine myself wanting to use anything else if 7-OH remains available in the States. The worst thing that the feds could do would be ban that for us, because all that's going to do is give another black market to, the cartels and stuff. And our 7-hydroxy products are going to be laced with fentanyl. The best thing that they could do would be to let it remain to be legal and, maybe test it. And I wouldn't mind if I had to go to a doctor to get it prescribed, but I would much rather it remain like an alcoholic product where it's, at a liquor store or whatever, and you can purchase it there, or you can purchase it from online vendors, that are going to verify your ID and make sure you're 21 or whatever,
Totally. Yeah, to your point, it's such an unfortunate situation where people who rely on 7-O, they're going to need something in the event that it gets banned. And we've actually seen in Florida where the 7-O ban hammer came down the hardest. Fentanyl and opiate deaths have skyrocketed,
Spiked,
400 or 500%.
Exactly.
And it's so sad. It's it's so predictable and it's so sad.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. It is predictable, and it is really sad, to be honest. What that shows me is that Big Pharma could care less about humanity in general, because I feel like Big Pharma are the ones pushing all these anti-7-OH ads that I'm seeing on Facebook every day now. I can't really watch anything on the computer without seeing an anti-7-OH advertisement, And I have a feeling that alcohol and Big Pharma is behind a lot of that. But to your point, you're right. Fentanyl overdoses have skyrocketed since since the Florida ban. They're not doing anything to help the people, that's for sure. They definitely just made things a lot worse. But it's a money market. Now people have to go from fentanyl back to Suboxone again, And
oh God.
Yeah, strangely enough,
man.
I do. Me as well. Strangely enough, I used 7-OH to get off of Suboxone because Suboxone was one of the worst medications that I've ever been on in my life. It made me a mean person. It made me short-tempered, and I wasn't happy. It didn't even make me feel good. I just needed it to survive at that point in time, And 7-hydroxy is so much more manageable than a Suboxone addiction. There's no other drug that I can imagine just simply tapering down and taking a little bit of vitamin C, to completely get off of without any bad side effects. I know that there's a lot of fear mongering online, people talking about withdrawing from 7-OH. But the thing is if you're able to follow your schedule that you have written out, your taper schedule, and use some vitamin C alongside of that, then you can actually do it without negative repercussions. Suboxone, you have to go through you got to go through detox, they taper you down as much as they can, but then there gets to a breakthrough point that you can't get past, without that uncomfortability and sickness that comes along with it.
Totally. Yeah. You're touching on a topic and a point that I've thought a lot about over the last probably 6 to 12 months. And yeah, it's kind of brutal just to see how difficult it is to get off of opiates. It's brutal, honestly, to see how difficult it is to get off of 7-0. It's like very addictive.
Yes.
I think with the rise of MGM, it's been really frustrating for me to see brands sort of, putting MGM into tabs without consumer knowledge. It leads to just totally burning out your receptors. Tolerances are sky high. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been reached out to and asked like, hey, when are you going to put out a 60, 80, 100 milligram tab? And the reality is I never want to. Like, I hate that tabs are that strong. I think they should not be that strong. And yeah, one of the projects I've been working on recently that we are just kind of now unveiling is called Reset. And that's sort of what I'm hoping is the solution to a lot of these tolerance issues, a lot of these detox tapering issues.
Yes, I'm so happy you touched on that because you're right. 7-hydroxymetragynine is very hard to come off of cold turkey, but you do have options, What I would suggest to people that I know personally, I would suggest by starting with a typical taper, and lowering your dose, and then eventually transferring over to MIT and then tapering your MIT, and then going from your MIT to regular kratom powder. And then I would introduce SR17 at the way end, because then you would only need a very little amount of SR17 to get over it. Now, some people like to go from 7-hydroxy cold turkey straight to SR17, and you can do it, but it's a lot less manageable.
Yeah.
I would really love to see you guys come out with some Reset tablets, that are accurately dosed and affordable, because there's one other company out there that does have tablets, but it's not really obtainable for a lot of people because they're price gouging. So if you guys could do that, that would be a godsend. There's not a whole lot of research on SR, but from what we do know is that it covers the MU receptors just like a partial agonist would. I think that's the correct terminology, because it's not a full agonist opiate. I think it's only a partial. I may be wrong, but regardless, it covers your receptors enough so you don't have to withdraw. You don't deal with the withdrawal. Now, it doesn't make you high. For anyone questioning that, SR17's you're not going to feel it. You're going to take it and you're just going to feel normal. You're not going to feel sick. But the nice thing about it is you don't have to taper necessarily from SR17 like you would have to taper from Suboxone.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it'll just flush out of your system a little bit more easily.
Yeah, no, for sure. SR17, I believe, is honestly a godsend for the recovery community. And I really think the doctors should really implement it instead of putting people on a 2-year-long Suboxone program. Do you know what I'm saying? Which is a huge money grab. You could put them on a week-long SR17 taper and then they're done. But the problem with that is their customer's gone. Do you know what I'm saying? Because people are cured. They're cured. They don't need, the doctor no more. So that's kind of why they like to push people into these 2-year-long Suboxone maintenance programs, which isn't helping the issue. If you're someone that wants to get away from opiates entirely, then a maintenance program is not the way you want to go. That's just replacing one major addiction with another.
Yeah. Just to clarify one thing. So actually this Reset product we've been working on is not SR17.
Interesting.
It is similar. I would say it is best categorized as an analog to SR17, but it is designed specifically with sort of 7-0 in mind. I do think it's going to generalize to all like opiates to make it easier for tapering, recovering, all that stuff. So yeah, we are sort of like right now running an initial pilot program just to get some real life data. And so far I'm like super, super excited at the data that's coming in and the experiences that people have had.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I view people who would want to use Reset as being in one of 3 buckets. There's definitely a lot of people who want to get off of 7-0 and just like taper completely. And I think this is super effective for them. I think there's a ton of people who would like to, get their daily dose down significantly while maintaining the same effects. And this is super useful for them. And then I think there's also a lot of people who probably like, if they could, would take more 7-0 because it's not actually functionally managing the symptoms that they're using 7-0 for, but they don't have the money. They don't have, for whatever reason, they can't actually get more 7-0. And so they're sort of taking enough to take the edge off, but not enough to really help. And so I think that Reset will help those people sort of maintain the same dose, but get a lot more out of it. And so, yeah, this is something I'm super excited about. And I think just being in the Kratom community, I've had so much fun just doing the testing platform, working with customers, talking with brands, all this stuff. And it's been like a ton of fun. I think reset is the thing that I really just feel in my bones. Like, this is what I want to do to change the community and to, like,
to
help
change
the world.
Because, to change the world.
Yeah,
dude,
dude, there's
100% there with you.
To your point, there's so many people who could use this. And right now, SR17 is not very affordable. It's, I think, hard for a lot of people to find a brand they trust to just send them sort of like untested powder. You know, you don't know what's in it. And yeah, I would love to change things. So,
can I ask you a question about it?
Yep.
Is it an SR product? Because I know that there's a few other SR derivatives that I've not done a lot of research, but I have been doing some reading about because I'm curious as well.
SR meaning like a Scripps research project?
No. Like, is it another SR? There's a few different versions of SR. So there's SR17, there's SR16, I think, or something like that. There's just a few different ones that I've read about, and they all have similar effects, but SR17 is the only one that I've known that's been proven out as much as it has.
Yeah, so I'm not a chemist, so I can't talk too much to sort of like the scientific differences, but I know that we started with SR17. Well, I don't know if you actually started with SR17. We basically looked at what works out there, and SR17 was one of those things that worked, and then thought, how could we like change this to make it even more effective for this specific community and a specific use case?
Dude, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you guys. Please keep doing what you're doing, man, because that could change the world. And you know what? The best case scenario, honestly, if you made something like that, best case scenario is they shut down big Suboxone programs and they replace it with that. Because I don't want to be tethered to a doctor and tethered to my script for months and months and years just because I'm trying to get off of illicit drugs. Do you know what I'm saying? And something like that would provide people the availability to do so, you know, and it would help everybody's pocket. I mean, this sounds like something that they wouldn't have to continue long term, right?
Yeah, totally. What we kind of have now is like, there'll be like a 7-day program, which is just 14 tabs, 2 tabs a day for a week. And then that kind of should get you to where you want to be. Yeah, there are some other things in place because this isn't necessarily just for people who want to get off of it. It's more, there's a lot of people who will take this and not really change their 7-0 habits that much, but they'll just get a lot more out of it. And so there's also like education in mind of just like, how do you make something that is like manageable?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have a couple ideas for how Reset is going to sort of hit the market that I'm like super excited about. But yeah, there's a lot of different things going on. But yeah, to your point, you're actually asking me before the call, like, is this the same as OR Reset, which is a product that I saw pop up on 7-0 Plus's website? The answer is no. We are completely different. I actually was so dismayed when I saw that this thing had come out because I was like, damn it, somebody like beat us to it. But then I ordered the product. It arrived. I looked at the packaging. I looked at everything and I was like, wow, this product is trash and it's expensive.
Yes. Thank you. It's very expensive. For the people that don't know, you can acquire a gram of SR17 for around $80. Now, the thing is like you said, you don't know who you're getting it from. It has no lab results with it. You don't even know if it's actual SR17. But if this company is going and purchasing a gram and then selling you 3 25 milligram tablets for whatever the cost is, I don't know, probably around $40 or something like that. Do you know?
How much the OR Reset is or how much the SR17 like
how much
is?
The OR Reset is?
Yeah, I think I paid like, it's like $25-$30 for a 3-pack. So it's basically $10 a tab and it's like a 25 milligram tab.
Yes, that's a huge price gouge right there, man. So for anybody that's doing that.
They don't write SR17 on their packaging.
Mm-hmm. Of course they don't, because they don't want you buying it yourself.
Yeah, they don't write SR17, but they spell it ESSAR-17. So that if you're reading it in your head, it's SR17, but legally they don't have some like, I don't know, I'm guessing it's some legal, loophole to like not have to be SR17, but then they write ESSAR-17. And I'm like, man, this is such Bush League
gray market.
Product.
Yeah. I think their reasoning behind it is they don't want you to Google it and find it and buy it yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that way they're
point.
the only ones that have that product, so now you have to go to them. And to be honest, if you only buy 3 tablets, 3 25 milligram tablets, that's not going to do anything for you. You would need like 10 packs.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And
They
they're
really
actually,
were.
when you read the directions, they say to take 3 tabs on like your first day. So I was like, okay, you're selling as a pack what you think is just like a one-time dose, but it's just crazy. And then so I buy a 10-pack of these OR reset tabs, and they just give you like 10 of these dinky little blister packs, like rubber banded together. And I was like, man, this is like crazy.
They're making good money on it. That's all I can say. If people are buying it, they have to be making a killing.
Yeah, they are making good money and at a price point that kind of makes me nauseated. So I'm really excited for our reset to actually, hit the market and have some results. And actually talking to a friend about this, which is, I think in an ideal world, if reset is as successful as I want it to be, we kind of like lose money because we're kind of allowing a lot of people to get off of Kratom or just to take much less. So, people who are buying 2-3 bottles a week can instead buy 2-3 bottles a month. But, yeah, I don't really care. So I'm kind of excited for this to help some people.
No, that's good. That speaks a lot about your company's character, to be honest. I think every 7OH producer and vendor needs to educate people, and they have not been doing that. Everyone's kind of dropped the ball on that. With this substance, more is less. If you want more euphoria, you need to take less tablets. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things that it's really easy to kind of hit like a ceiling. They talk about ceiling doses when it comes to taking 7O, and everybody's body is different. But once you hit that certain ceiling, you kind of lose all effects to it. And sooner than later, you're going to burn out your receptors and you're going to get no feelings from it at all. I mean, I had probably 6 months where I could take my 7 and I wasn't feeling anything because I burnt out my receptors with the MGM-15 and just by taking too much 7O. The sweet spot for me, honestly, seems to be around like 10 to 20 milligram doses every 5 hours. Seems to really be the sweet spot.
Okay, those dollar tabs are great for you then.
Yes, they really are. And that's why I like to see more companies producing dollar tabs instead of 100 milligram tablets. All that is a huge money grab. But in reality, they're just burning everybody out on it,
Yeah, totally. By the way, I actually sent you one of the first samples of our new product, which is a 25 milligram lemon tab. So you're actually maybe the first person who got to try those tabs. I'm curious what you think.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's really exciting. So right off the bat, I ended up taking 2.5 of them when I had received them. And again, compared to other smoke shop tablets that I had, it was very clean feeling. I didn't really get that grogginess that I get from some tablets. It was just a really clean euphoria. Obviously, they felt accurately dosed, but as they always are coming from your company, and then you guys really hit that sweet spot with the sourness produced by the malic acid. So companies, as I'm sure put malic acid in their tablets to give them a little bit of a sour, tangy flavor, but that's not why they do it. They put the malic acid in there because it makes it more bioavailable to our bodies, so instead of digesting, a lower percentage of the 7-hydroxy that we take, we can actually digest a higher percentage. I can't tell you exact numbers, but we do know that malic acid makes 7-hydroxy and some other chemicals and drugs more bioavailable to our bodies. But you guys really hit the nail on the head there, because I've had some tablets, maybe from like Omega Extract, some of their sour tabs that were so sour that it was almost hard to eat, it was hard to stomach. And then another thing that I worry about is, malic acid is not good for your teeth,
Right.
It does rot the enamel away. So you really don't want to go overboard. But yeah, the taste and the euphoria for these lemon tabs was right on spot. Man, I really couldn't give them much of a better review, I thought they were great. And I'm not a fan of lemon tabs. I'll tell you right now, I dislike them because companies go overboard with the malic acid and they make them way too sour and you end up getting heartburn. But I assume that you have malic acid in the batch just because it's a little bit sour. So I would assume that it's there. I may be incorrect.
I think you're right. To be transparent, we're not totally in charge of the flavoring in that. We just work with some really good people. The chemist who does all the flavoring, I think she's like the best in the game. I really want to have her on the podcast. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Hopefully we can have a conversation with her. I'll be sure to ask her about the malic acid and tell her that one of our more astute customers gave a very positive review of the way she went about with the lemons.
Oh, she's killing it. Yeah, and with your watermelon tabs, you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that it's in there as well, and you guys did a great job
Yep, same chemist helped with those.
Yeah, I could imagine just by tasting them, I would assume that it was the same chemist, man, because they're really, really good. And like I said, the euphoria was there. The first batch of watermelons, for whatever reason, the base powder that they used, must have just been different. There's this thing about 7-hydroxy powders where it's like you can take one and you'll get great euphoria, and you'll take another which is just as good quality, and you won't. And I don't quite understand the chemistry or what's missing, you know what I'm saying, what alkaloid may be in there, what alkaloid may not. I just know that every batch of powder seems to affect people differently, and some are just better than others,
Yeah, totally. Cool. So we have a couple minutes left, and I know there's a couple things we didn't touch on. Is there a direction you would want to go for just this last topic?
Well, man, honestly, I would really like to see you guys take up some space in some of the smoke shops, so people that are buying it locally have the opportunity to get a hold of something that we know exactly what's in it. The lab results come with it. Maybe, I mean, it'd be great I would love to go into a smoke shop and have the guy behind the counter say, "Hey, let me show you the lab results for all these things that you're buying." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because smoke shops kind of, I don't want to say are shady, but it's just like, they do not do their due diligence. They just kind of purchase things from vendors and put it on the shelf. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So when I was telling some of the local smoke shops, hey, by the way, all of your MIT tabs have MGM-15 in them, and here's the lab results, they had no clue what MGM-15 was. They said, no, that's an MIT tab. It says right on the packaging. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You go and do your research and you talk to a testing company and they say, no, there's no MIT in that at all, actually, which is really, really scary to think about, that there's things in there that you're taking and you don't really know what they are, that the smoke shops aren't really educating their customers, on their products.
Honestly, yeah, I would love to go that route. Man, I've looked into it a few times though. The process of getting your product into a smoke shop is kind of terrible. So let me kind of tell you what this looks like.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, we need to come out with a different SKU because no smoke shop is going to want to carry a 50 pill bottle. They want smaller blister pack type things.
Actually, you'd be surprised, man. I see some of those smoke shops. When I was up in Pennsylvania, they had 80 and 100 count bottles, and they were selling them for $300 a piece. And I would watch customers come in and buy 5 bottles at $300 a piece, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, I'm telling you. So people do want bulk, but we want it for a fair price.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so first there's that. So, okay, maybe that's the solved problem. The next issue is that smoke shops don't like to pay for new products up front. So what you need to do is you need to float inventory. So you basically need to give inventory for free and then have them pay you for it once it sells. And that is a way to get into these networks and basically prove that this is the product people want without having to put up money. And so to get into that smoke shop network, it's kind of like tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 units of whatever you're selling. So if we're going to stick with the bottles, there's hundreds of thousands of tabs that are sort of floated out for free, and you hope the money comes back. And if we do a smaller SKU, it's still sort of probably close to 100,000 plus tabs. So it's been definitely on my mind. I think that right now the murkiness of the federal national nature of 7.0 kind of is holding me back from wanting to go through that whole effort of floating millions of dollars of product for something that might be illegal immediately.
Yes.
I think that if I felt that 7.0 would for sure be legal for the next 6 to 12 months, I'd probably put in the effort to go float stuff in smoke shops. And yeah, it's a problem I want to solve for sure because there's such an untapped market of people who are only buying from smoke shops. And I feel bad for them because they're paying way too much money for underdosed MDM infested tabs. And it's a really hard market to reach if you're not actually getting your product into a smoke shop. So I totally hear you. And I want to get in smoke shops. It's just a huge undertaking.
Well, I'll tell you what, at a location where the people here would really, really love to see affordable MIT tabs. And everyone knows that they only plan on better. If there is a federal ban, it's going to be 7.0H.
Right.
So to kind of steer away from something that may potentially be illegal someday, maybe if you guys thought about producing MIT tabs, that would be a good thing to want to introduce into smoke shops.
I think that would make more sense for sure.
Yes, and instead of floating product and letting them pay for it after they sell it, maybe give them product at a really, really good discount, because the price that you guys are charging right now for your product wholesale online is already very, very cheap. Because if you were to put that into a smoke shop, what they're going to do is upmarket twice what they're paying for it. So you guys are selling at 6 cents a milligram. Smoke shops are notoriously known to sell it for 12 to 15 cents a milligram, and they're underdosed. So you're not only giving them a product, where they can double their money, but people are actually getting what they're paying for. And as soon as word gets out that TMK's product is legitimate, and they have lab results to prove it, I'm willing to bet that you're going to take over the whole MIT market, in smoke shops, if we were willing to put in the work to get there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. I would love to see our products in smoke shops around the country. And I'd love, even if that were an MIT product, I think I'd be very proud of that too. And I think there's lots of people who take MIT who don't want Kratom. And those people deserve to have accurately dosed, affordable products just as much as people who take 7.0. So,
amen.
For sure, that is the direction I think we might go.
That'd be great. I'd love to see that. If there was any way that I could help out where I'm at, I'd definitely be all for it. I've always, I've been wanting to get into sales for a long time, and I've been in a few smoke shops when the vendors come in that drive around from smoke shop to smoke shop and sell their vapes. I know that you have to there's a certain license that you have to get to be able to wholesale to smoke shops.
Right.
But if you guys were able to acquire that license, I wouldn't mind trying to help out and put in the footwork to get you guys into all of the local ones in this area and surrounding bordering states. Because, the bordering states around me would like to see MIT as well, with all these bans that are going on. I don't know how many states have banned 7-hydroxy, but it's just like, it seems to be more and more every day, So people are going to start turning to MIT as the next best, safest option.
Yep. Yeah, well, I appreciate your willingness to help. And honestly, I feel like you've done so much just with all the amazing feedback you've given us. And just I really appreciate having you on the podcast to talk through your experience. I think it's really important that people, understand the reason these things are important in the world isn't just because there's not one single reason, but I think everyone has a very compelling reason for it. And I'm really glad that I got to hear yours.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. I mean, in all reality, 7.0 has changed my life in a positive way. It allows me to manage my life and all my day-to-day tasks flawlessly compared to the Suboxone trap that I was stuck in.
Awesome. Well, I wish you continued success in your recovery journey, and definitely let me know if I could be of assistance to you in any way.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me, man. This was an exciting opportunity. Like I said, 7.0 really has changed my life for the better. And your company has really provided the transparency that we need. As consumers, we need transparency with what we're putting into our bodies. And you guys were the only company to step up and actually take on that burden, of testing everything and letting the people know what we're putting into our bodies.
Hell yeah. Well, we will keep doing you right. And man, with Reset coming out and all the other things we got coming down the pike, I'm super excited I think this month of May is going to be awesome. We're going to come out with so much cool shit, and I'm really happy I got to talk to you at the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm really excited. Let me know if there's anything that I can do to help. And I'm excited to try your guys' Reset product when it comes out and hits the shelves, man.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for being our first customer podcast. And from the TMK studio, this has been Jay.
This has been Tim. Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely. We'll see you all later.